Senator Kyrsten Sinema got a lot of negative attention after she decided to do this jubilant performance while voting down a $15 an hour minimum wage hike as part of the coronavirus relief package. Now, there was really no need to have that kind of exaggerated gesture as she's voting it down. And many, I think, accurately saw that as Kyrsten Sinema rubbing it in our faces that the bill would not include a $15 an hour minimum wage. Now, following few hours of backlash, Senator Sinema's spokesperson actually spoke to the Huffington Post, and Amanda Turkle tweeted about it, and it enraged me. So here's what it said. Senator Sinema's spokesperson said it's sexist to comment on a female politician's body language or physical demeanor when Huffington Post inquired about her thumbs down vote on minimum wage. Commentary about a female senator's body language, clothing, or physical demeanor does not belong in a serious media outlet, a spokesperson for Sinema told the Huffington Post. So this is what you see from, not all, okay, I think it's unfair to say all, but certainly from conservative Democrats who want to vote down any type of policy that would pull people out of poverty, or when they continue to push for austerity of incredibly popular universal social safety net programs like Medicare or Social Security. And they love to deflect anytime they get negative attention by immediately accusing those who are criticizing them of either being sexist or racist or homophobic. I mean, you name it, whatever the soup du jour is. And it's incredibly frustrating because it's very transparent in trying to shut down a valid conversation, a valid debate. And more importantly, it makes a mockery of actual racism, sexism, and all the other inequalities that we experience in this country, right? They're using it as a political tool. It's very obvious. And I think it's absolutely cowardly and disgusting every time it happens. I have more to say on this, but Cenk, why don't you jump in?
Yeah, so, and we should also note the intimidation that they threw in there too. Like no serious media outlet would cover it this way. In other words, we're gonna call you not credible, and that in Washington is the biggest threat there is, because if you're deemed not credible in Washington, you'll be basically canceled in a sense. And people don't return your calls, they don't give you quotes for your articles, etc. So Kyrsten Sinema immediately goes to a tactic that the powerful use a lot, which is threatening the media's access, as well as charging them with sexism. Now, what I loved was the reaction from HuffPost, who didn't buy any of that stuff. So Amanda Turkle, an editor there, with very clearly pointing this out and getting past it. Amanda's a terrific editor and writer. And then the person who wrote this piece in particular is Sarah Babolts. I don't know the pronunciation of the name, but she was terrific in two different ways. Number one, the way she described that interaction was Sinema's office responded to a question about the gesture by making the absurd claim that the inquiry is sexist. Thank you. Oftentimes reporters don't have the courage to say, no, this explanation by this politician is absurd. Of course it's not true, right? They're like, oh, but both sides, and then maybe it could be. No, it's not, it's absurd. And then later, you could tell she's a great reporter because she went on to clarify when Sinema's team said, oh, we care a lot about the minimum wage and we're gonna do that later, and maybe we'll do it as a standalone bill and that's better. The reporter here clarified that no, if you're doing it as a standalone bill, it has almost no chance of passing because of the filibuster. So it gave the audience the important context that they needed, because if you leave that part out, which almost all mainstream media does, it makes it seem like Sinema actually does want to pass it at a later time. When in reality, she's doing a trick. It has almost no chance of passing as a standalone bill. And here, HuffPost does a great job of pointing out the actual facts of the case that leads you to the opposite conclusion, which is that Sinema does not want to pass the minimum wage, and that is the correct conclusion based on the full context.
Exactly. And I mean, if we want to have a discussion about sexism, or doing something in a position of power to actually benefit or enhance women's lives, one very easy way to do it is to ensure that you increase the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour minimum, at least, right? And there have been studies looking into who would benefit, which demographic would benefit the most from increasing the federal minimum wage. And wow, wouldn't you know it? The majority of minimum wage workers in this country happen to be women. Right now, 59% of workers who would benefit from a $15 an hour minimum wage are women, with nearly 1 in 4 of these women being Latina or Black. But it seems like Senator Sinema is much more interested in getting the approval of Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell than actually doing what's right in representing the best interests of not just women, but minimum wage workers, ensuring that people are paid decently for the job that they're doing, ensuring that they're not paid starvation wages. I mean, this video of her trying to get Senator McConnell's attention right before she votes down the $15 an hour minimum wage, and he doesn't even turn around to look at her. I mean, it's just doesn't even care to watch her. Oh, it's so sad. All of it is so unbelievably pathetic and sad. And I also want to just quickly mention that Sinema has been, she's much like politicians that we criticize on this show. When she was running for senator, she seemed to present herself as something completely different. I want to remind you all of what her campaign ads look like.
When I was in elementary school, my dad lost his job. Then my parents got divorced. My mom struggled to take care of us kids on her own. First, we lost our car. Then we lost our home. For nearly 3 years, we lived in an old abandoned gas station without running water or electricity. Sometimes we didn't have enough food to eat, but we got by thanks to help from family, church, and sometimes even the government. I have the chance to change things and help Arizonans every day. Whether it's a veteran who can't get his benefits, a widow who needs Social Security, a businessman who's struggling with red tape, or parents worried their kids won't have a better life than they have. I get to help people solve their problems. What a privilege.
I mean, she sees it as a privilege when she's running for the Senate, but after she's been elected and has spent a little bit of time, in the Senate, she seems to completely change her identity. In fact, she was known for giving a standing ovation for Donald Trump's tax cuts for the rich back in 2017. Just one more video reminding you of what Kyrsten Sinema immediately transitioned into after she got elected.
As part of our great Republican tax cuts.
So sexism has nothing to do with this. Kyrsten Sinema has been a complete and utter disaster, a standing ovation for tax cuts for the rich, an unwillingness to increase the federal minimum wage for minimum wage workers, and more importantly, rubbing it in people's faces as she was voting down that provision of the bill just gives you a sense of who Kyrsten Sinema is really looking out for. It's not for women, it's not for the best interests of her constituents. It seems to only be about her own personal branding and getting a little attention with her theatrics there.
Yeah, so when John McCain did the theatrics of a thumbs down on the Republicans' attempts to kill Obamacare, that was also clearly theatrics, and everybody pointed it out, and nobody charged McCain with anything, right? When Sinema does even more over-the-top theatrics, clearly to catch our attention and clearly to catch Mitch McConnell's attention, of course people are going to point it out. And them using sexism as a shield there, it really, not only is it something that cheapens everything that's supposed to stand for, it becomes enormously counterproductive because it allows right wingers to say, oh, all of sexism is fake. Remember when Sinema, the Democrat, did that thing about, oh yeah, they're voting down wages, but it's sexist to criticize her. So it's just does so much damage. And her desperate attempt to get McConnell's attention shows you she's trying to tell Republicans, both with the Trump ovation and this, I'm willing to work with you guys, I might switch over to being a Republican. In her mind, she thinks that gains her credibility in Arizona with what she believes is so-called centrist voters, but it also gains her credibility with corporate donors. So I explained this on an earlier show. When she was first coming up, she was in the Green Party. She used to talk all the time about being LGBTQ. She talked about her family struggles. She gets to Washington and two things happen, but the one I mentioned earlier is that she realized, oh, there's a different ballgame, right? Getting elected, you have to try to be as progressive as humanly possible. But once you've tricked voters and you get to Washington, you have to be as corporate as humanly possible, because at that point, the incumbents get millions upon millions of dollars in corporate donations. And then if they have enough money, they can't possibly lose. So she just adjusted her game. You could say, hey, you know what? That's smart and strategic if the only thing you care about is yourself. And that's the kind of politician that Kyrsten Sinema is. And she's willing to throw other women under the bus by using sexism as a defense here, when she knows that that's ridiculous and that it will hurt other women's causes, because that's who she is. And the last part of it is ego. When they get to Washington, they are showered with praise, because humanity, let alone DC, is obsessed with status. The minute someone is a United States senator, oh my God, that you would be shocked at the level of ass kissing. I mean, people are kissing their ass 24/7. Oh my God, Senator Sinema, you are the greatest. And that gets to you, and that gets you to do flippant things like this and forget your whole past, forget any. I don't know if she was ever genuine, but if she ever was, she certainly forgot that the minute all those people started giving her that status of, don't worry, you're one of the elites now. In DC, you're not allowed to call people like Kristen or Joe. You have to say Senator Sinema, Senator Manchin, right? Otherwise, they get very, very mad, because the elites are not allowed to be in any way critiqued. And this is a different version of that.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.